Hey, you guys, happy Wednesday. I hope this finds you well. This subject that I want to talk about is a little bit heavier in nature. Forgive me, I do have a cold, um, but I feel like it's better addressed me in a video than in a post, and that way you can choose to listen to it later or when you have time, or not at all. It's totally up to you. The topic is coping with trauma. And over this 12 weeks, a lot of you, and again, this is just the ones I know of, have suffered unimaginable trauma. And trauma comes in all different shapes and sizes. And what you guys have gone through personally is very heavy and it's very serious. And I feel like I would be doing you a major disservice to not talk about this. So again, trauma comes in various forms, and it's really important that you don't dismiss your trauma, that you don't devalue it, that you don't compare it to other people's trauma. What you're going through is, if it causes you to feel, react, behave a certain way, you have to recognize it as trauma. Just because someone else is going through something that may seem very grave and serious does not mean you're not going through something. And I think a lot of times we try to oh my gosh, what am I even being upset about? That person's going through this. And we sweep our own personal hurt under the rug. And we do ourselves a disservice because it doesn't matter what anybody else is going through. You have to deal with what you are feeling personally. And so, again, just reiterating, it's really important to not undermine what is happening in your life or to your body. Secondly, I think one of the most important things to do is to not be alone in your trauma. And you have to choose the best people or ways to cope, and that may be your friends and family, that be a professional, a therapist, a counselor. It could be a clergy member at your church. Find someone that you trust, that not only can be a good listener, because it's really important that you be heard during this time. It's also important that you choose someone who has your overall best interest and well-being in mind. And sometimes that is why maybe our closest family and friends, although try to be there as much as possible, they aren't always the best. And I'll tell you why. We can only help others cope with trauma based on how we cope with trauma. So if we cope with trauma by self-medicating, harming, withdrawing, whatever ways, or pretending it didn't happen, that's what we would project to others. So we have to be mindful on who we trust to help us heal from our trauma. Self-medicating is very damaging to dealing with trauma or the healing process in general. It is so easy to want to get fucked up, to want to pop a bunch of pills and not feel anything. And that's a band-aid. That is a temporary solution. And I will tell you firsthand that you will only delay the healing process, and you could actually, if you are responsible for the well-being of others, you can actually hurt or delay their well-being as well. So again, you got to be real, and you got to be honest with your coping mechanisms, and if they are harmful to yourself, if you are mentally not at when you suffer trauma, you're physiologically not going to be at your best. Your cortisol levels drop significantly, or increase, I'm sorry. Your cortisol increases, your serotonin, your endorphins, they drop. So that's why physiologically you will feel drained. You will feel physically achy. You will have headaches. You will not be at your best because your body is trying to protect you in times of stress or pain or trauma. So it's really important that you understand what your body is going through. And it is very easy to, again, fall back into past ways to cope with trauma. And it's going to be easier for you in the long run if you don't use alcohol, medications, food. I used food to cope with pain for a very long time. I was an emotional eater. I abused food and alcohol. So I have some experience with this. And another thing is to do the bare minimum that you can to feel well during your trauma. And oftentimes your trauma involves helping other people. Sometimes you're not alone in your trauma. Sometimes it affects your family and friends and other people. So not only are you trying to help yourself, you are trying to help others. And it's important to do the bare minimum things, and that is hydrate, eat, sleep, move, breathe. Those are my 5 things. Like a program like this, in the scale of overall trauma, is very low on the list. But your well-being still remains very high. So I just ask that you be mindful. I ask that you drink as much water as you can. You eat as well as you can. You sleep as much as you can. And I know those things are easier said than done. I suffered a trauma 5 years ago that still keeps me awake at night, that still makes it hard to sleep. So I am not trying to minimize any of this, but I am trying to I'm not going to give you permission to betray yourselves in a time of trauma. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to advocate for your well-being through the hardest times of your life. And so people who throw alcohol and tell you, oh, here, I got Valium, I got Xanax, yeah, they're helping you in the way that they know how, and we can't fault them for that. But I just know that you got to find new ways to cope, because trauma is never ending for some of us. And so please stay hydrated. Please eat the best choices you can, but sometimes we just need calories and we just need energy. So this is not the time to pick apart your diet. This is just time to eat something that gives our brain and our body some energy to deal with very difficult times. Sleep as much as you can. Your body needs rest. Your brain needs rest. So it's really important that you do so. Movement, it's still important, even if you can't get these 3 days, 30 minutes of exercise in, you do something, even if it's a 5-minute walk, even if you do jumping jacks, just get your body going. It's important that you breathe, mindful breathing. When we are tense and we are stressed, our breathing becomes labored. When we are angry, when we hold our breath, and it's something as simple as just, sorry, I'm sick, deep breaths in, slow exhales. Slow exhales, they send signals to your autonomic nervous system. I know it's crazy, but it actually helps soothe and relax you. Please take care of yourselves. If you know someone who is going through a trauma, please try to help them the best ways that you know how. Please resist the urge to alter their behavior. Please keep checking up on them when they withdraw. Please advocate for your own well-being and the well-being of others. And if you need me, and if you are suffering from a trauma and you don't know where to go, please reach out. I love you guys so much. Be honest with yourselves and your feelings. Don't minimize what's happening to you, and find the best ways to get through it. I don't ever want you to feel alone. I don't ever want you to feel utter despair. And please reach out. And I love you guys. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.